cloud migration. And like I said, most enterprises are not all in on the cloud. They have a combination of physical, virtual, and cloud-based workloads. And those workloads may be across multiple cloud providers. So it truly is a hybrid and multi-cloud world for them. And they need to operationalize a security model that applies consistent policies, visibility, remediation, and a common set of workflows across all of those environments. So the next big one is around cloud-native application development. Forward-leading teams are doing everything new from an application perspective in the cloud, and they're using cloud-native principles. So they're using DevOps so that they can achieve speed and deliver continuously. They're using not only cloud workloads, but cloud storage and containers and serverless. And the challenge for you as a security leader is figuring out how to give these builders in the cloud choice in terms of the infrastructure they choose, but also to make sure that you're able to secure all of it. And most importantly, you need to automate into the CI/CD pipeline so that you aren't slowing the teams down. The final big use case that we're seeing more and more often is cloud operational excellence. We're starting to see cloud centers of operational excellence pop up in a lot of enterprises. And really the focus here is all about scaling your cloud operations so that you can be assured that things are done in a repeatable and consistent way and aren't introducing risk into your enterprise. So you want to be able to put guardrails in place for your teams that are building in the cloud to make sure that they aren't introducing risk, that you're doing things in accordance with best practices like the AWS or Azure well-architected frameworks, and that you're able to meet compliance standards like NIST and GDPR and all of the other ones that you are exposed to. So when you look at this, it's really challenging. It can seem like a very daunting task to create a security strategy across all of these variables. And are you gonna bring together a bunch of different point products and create bloat in your organization? How are you going to satisfy all of the different buyers and influencers across the enterprise that now want to say in how security is done? And I'm happy to have Adam here to talk to us today about how Trend is helping customers to simplify cloud security with Trend Micro Cloud One. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Wendy. So Wendy walked us through these three families of use cases. Again, that's the aggregation of all of our customer conversations the last couple of years. And the one pattern we see in all of those is that there's too many point product companies out there. And we're failing the market, we're failing the industry by continuing this. So what did we do instead? Well, we created the anti-point product, Cloud One. Cloud One is a collection of continuously and independently releasing security services designed for multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environments. And this we've kept in mind. We wanted to change the psychology in the market, actually, where why do I have to assume I need a full-blown tool from one vendor to solve this one small security problem? Frank talked about complexity being kind of the evil enemy here. And that's exactly what we're trying to attack here is the complexity at enterprise levels of too many tools. So let me do a tour of all of our Cloud One services. The first one, workload security. Workload security has been our flagship offer, formerly known as Deep Security as a Service, and has helped us establish our leadership position in cloud workload security, protecting compute across all the different clouds as well as the data center. Then we have container security. So in your enterprise, you have CI/CD pipelines everywhere. You don't know who the owners are. You don't know how many you have, but you have a lot of innovation going on there, continuously delivering containers out into an operations environment. But what's really important here is you need a solution that's going to continuously scan and make sure that those containers are clean and free of security risk. You also need to be able to control them through Kubernetes with the admission controller based on policy to decide whether they should propagate to runtime or not. Next, really leveling up in the cloud native application security space is our application security offer. This is for your serverless and your serverless containers cloud native application development. So this is basically like a RAS-based library that gets inserted in a Lambda layer and eventually in an Azure function, as well as containers that are using a managed serverless container environment, for example, like AWS Fargate on EKS. We don't have access to the infrastructure, so we have to provide you the protection inside the application. Next up, file storage security. This one's really excited. We've been talking to our customers for a long time about this space. You know, whether it's Azure Blob Storage, Google Cloud file storage, or Amazon's S3 buckets, which is a huge service. We've been working directly with our customers and excited to bring this preview starting in the next couple of weeks, S3 scanning, and then eventually working across Azure and Google as well. And then we have conformity. Conformity for cloud security posture management, integrating into all of your cloud accounts, starting with AWS and Azure, and by the end of the year, Google Cloud Platform, introspecting all the services, all the instances of those services, and giving you a scorecard on compliance, security risk, and how you're doing on best practices. And then finally, network security. Network security, this is based on Tipping Point. Wicked product. It's more than enterprise grade, it's government grade. Many governments across the world use this. Now it's cloudified and SaaSified, working in AWS today, and we're in development with Azure. We're very excited about this, working in a variety of different network topologies, leveraging, for example, AWS Transit Gateway, and seeing all ingress and egress traffic in a centralized location. So very sensitive to the deployment experience. We've heard from our customers how brittle and how much infrastructure operational friction there is with existing solutions. And so our team has really designed around minimizing that, both on the deployment experience and soon the billing experience. All right, so what we have here is what Cloud One looks like when you log in. You see all the services here, but all of these are interweaved into a solution fabric. In our 2020 fabric, we're covering single sign-on, authentication, customer account management, usage-based billing, and support, unified documentation, so a full-blown information architecture across all of these services in a unified way, as well as all the API documentation, because all of these services designed API first have a great developer experience. All in one solution, not 6-point products.
The other thing that we hear, Adam, from our customers is that cloud infrastructure can't be another silo of visibility. You know, there's already enough silos of visibility when it comes to all of the infrastructure that you have in play in your organization. You know, you probably have an EDR solution sending siloed insights and alerts. You have another network solution that is sending events and about suspicious information and network detections. And you might have some limited visibility when it comes to your cloud workloads. But we often see also a lot of customers who are trying to basically leverage an EDR solution that was built for traditional endpoints, not built for the cloud. And they're finding massive blind spots when it comes to fundamental things like Linux. We all know Linux is so prevalent out there, and not being able to detect and see what is happening on those Linux workloads is just detrimental. The other thing we know is that email is the #1 threat vector. It's how threats most often get into your organization. So the SOC wants to be able to see what's happening there as well. How do we help the SOC piece together all these silos of visibility so that they can get a true picture of how threats are getting in, how they're spreading across the organization, and where they're having impact? It's really challenging today. They're drowning in alerts through the SIM, and they're not getting that complete holistic picture. And that's where Trend Micro XDR comes into play. We introduced you to XDR and our vision for XDR last year and delivered detection and response across both endpoint and email. And I'm really happy to share that over the next week or so, we will be extending that XDR capability across both network and, yes, Cloud One workload security. So what does XDR do? XDR is able to pull detection and activity data from all of these different layers of security into a common data lake. So you get away from those silos of visibility that you're used to. And using big data analytics, we're able to correlate all of the threats and activity to give you meaningful alerts and fewer alerts, higher quality alerts. I talked to one of the preview customers for this, and they said it's like reading a book. I actually see from beginning to end how a threat came into an organization, how it spread, and what its impact was. So Adam, I know that Cloud One workload security support for XDR will be coming into preview in the next very short time frame. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Actually, it's going in a preview tomorrow. So that's going to be exciting, Wendy, for sure. All right, so let's talk about Cloud One workload security integration into XDR. So here we have is the XDR workbench. This is where you're doing your investigation. And here we have a Linux detection. So in all of our customer conversations, the common pattern is, tell us about Linux. They already have EDR solutions, by the way, when they're asking this. Why are they asking us about Linux when they already have something? Well, from what we can see is we've been doing Linux a very long time. We have the most complete set of support for protection for Linux operating systems and their versions, and all the kernels, thousands and thousands of kernels, complete. We can respond quickly to kernel changes and get protection out immediately. This is expected. This is what our customers want. And when they try other EDR solutions, it's brittle. It's not complete like us. So we're very excited to talk about, as an example, a Linux detection here. So here we have is a remote payload that has been downloaded through a scheduled cron job. So the attacker has scheduled a cron job, has got onto that machine, and has set up a cron job to download a remote and malicious payload. That payload happens to be a Monero coin miner. We see this a lot in the cloud. And you can see in the UI here, you see the detection on the top left. And below that, you actually see the Linux MITRE attack techniques used. And then on the right in that map, you can see where the attacker as a root user has got onto the machine and has run bash commands. We can see one bash command setting up that cron job. And then we can see another command where that cron job now is downloading the coin miner and trying to execute that. So we're just getting really started here with our Windows Server and our Linux Server integration. All that value and leadership we've had on Windows and Linux servers for years across data center, AWS, Azure, and GCP, and we're bringing that into detection and response. Now, where we want to go with this, all of our customers have said, I need visibility across the hybrid and multi-cloud. Well, what out there in the market has that visibility that you can see across all multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, compute, storage, and networking? It doesn't exist. And what we want to do is fill that gap, give you maximum visibility across compute, networking, and storage across AWS, Azure, Google, and your data centers, all through Cloud One and XDR.
It's exciting.
All right, so why don't we do a deep dive into one of our Cloud One services? And we want to deep dive into this one because it's so easy, Wendy. Mm-hmm. It's really, really easy. Cloud One Conformity. This is a very, very easy way. If you haven't used Cloud One, we suggest you start with this one. Why? Because it's so easy to use and it's so easy to see immediate value. So let's pop into, have a look at this and take a bit of a tour. So here we see 15 accounts loaded across AWS and Azure, and immediately we get a scorecard. And by the end of the year, we're going to have Google Cloud Platform integrated as well. So imagine having that visibility of the posture across tens, hundreds, or thousands of cloud accounts. This is really important. Cloud One Conformity is continuously checking and monitoring the posture across all of these accounts and all of the instantiations of those services within those accounts. So let's go through a couple of examples. S3 buckets being publicly exposed. Cloud One Conformity is going to light up like a Christmas tree. Or if you have EC2 instances or of Azure VMs that have not been configured based on the principle of least privilege, well, you really want to see those quickly as well, right? Or what about best practices? So let's say you've got tons of developers using cloud accounts and maybe they're still crafting their skill in cloud accounts, but what about all the orphaned resources that have been instantiated? Would you like to see what those are? And would you like to automate in your own IT processes the cleanup of those? So what's cool about this is that we have a variety of checks on a large set of compliance frameworks like GDPR, NIST, PCI, SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA. And you get that scorecard and you can see that trending, but also based on the Azure and AWS well-architected framework. Imagine that. So you get your score on the compliance that you have to adhere to, but you're also constantly iterating and improving, making sure cloud accounts are being used at scale properly based on best practices recommended by those cloud providers. So that's really powerful. And having your teams be able to see how they're trending, to see whether, okay, geez, all these exercises that we're doing with the development teams are working, or we've had a bunch of new cloud accounts added and our compliance score is dropping. Call for action to get on that. The other cool thing about conformity is that every single detection gives you a thoughtful definition of how to remediate that. So essentially, conformity is spoon feeding you how to resolve that misconfiguration, every single one of them. We love that about the tool. That's such a great product experience. Okay, and so we know at scale, you need to collaborate differently with your developers. Well, they don't have to log in the console. They need guardrails. They don't need to be security experts. You're the security expert. So how can you asynchronously communicate with them? Through channels that are familiar with them, such as Slack or Jira, or maybe you've got a nice big ServiceNow process in there with ticketing. You can route misconfigurations that are just unique and targeted to each of those development teams.
And we're happy to offer to everyone attending today a free health check for your cloud infrastructure. All you need to do is go to trendmicro.com/cloud health check, and then give us 10 minutes of your time, and we'll set up a Zoom with you where we configure you and get you going, and you leave with a report that will basically tell you how well you're doing in terms of your configuration of infrastructure and key things that you can do to improve it. So that was a quick whirlwind experience, Adam.
Yes.
I hope we've accomplished our goal of helping you to understand how Trend Micro Cloud One can help you to simplify your cloud security strategy. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.